This is a recently deleted post by a Chinese diplomat threatening the cutting of the neck to none other than the sitting Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, an official representative of the Chinese government, publicly threatening to behead the leader of Japan. The post stayed up for hours before being scrubbed from the internet, but by then it was too late. Screenshots spread everywhere. The world saw it, and without hesitation, Japan moved ballistic missiles to within 70 miles of Taiwan. Right now, two of Asia's superpowers are locked in the most dangerous standoff since World War II. Economic warfare has begun, military assets are moving, and the United States just got involved. What happens next could reshape the entire world order. Let's take a look. To understand why China responded with such fury, we need to rewind 7 days. November 7th, 2025. Japan's Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, stood before Parliament and said something no Japanese leader had ever dared to say publicly. She declared that if China attacked Taiwan, it would threaten Japan's very survival, and Japan would respond militarily. Now, Japan and Taiwan have always had close unofficial ties. But for 80 years, Japanese leaders played it safe. They hinted, they implied. They spoke in careful diplomatic code. Takaichi, Japan's first female prime minister, just shattered that ambiguity. She said the quiet part out loud, and she did it on the world stage. The Japanese public? Nearly half of them supported her. 48.8% said yes, Japan should defend Taiwan. This wasn't just one politician going rogue. This was a shift in Japanese policy. China's response was immediate and completely unprecedented. November 9th, 2025. Xue Jian, China's consul general in Osaka, opened his social media account, and he posted this. That filthy neck that barged in on its own. I've got no choice but to cut it off without a moment's hesitation. Are you prepared for that? Let that sink in. A Chinese diplomat, based in Japan's second-largest city, just threatened to behead Japan's prime minister. This violated every rule of international diplomacy. Ambassadors and consuls are supposed to build bridges, not threaten violence against the leaders of their host countries. Within hours, the post was deleted, but screenshots had already spread across the internet. The international community erupted. Western nations condemned it. Asian neighbors watched in disbelief. And Japan? Japan demanded an explanation. China's foreign ministry offered no apology, no retraction. Instead, they doubled down. Because the beheading threat? That was just the beginning. China was about to hit Japan where it really hurts. Mid-November 2025, China launched a coordinated economic assault on Japan. 3 strikes, all designed to inflict maximum pain. Strike 1. The seafood ban. China suspended all imports of Japanese seafood. Over 700 Japanese exporters, who had just been approved to re-enter the Chinese market, were suddenly locked out. We're talking about a market that used to represent more than a fifth of Japan's total seafood exports. Billions of dollars, gone overnight. Strike 2. The culture war. Chinese authorities pulled Japanese films from theaters. Popular movies like Crayon Shin-chan and Cells at Work. Screenings cancelled. The message was clear. Japanese culture is no longer welcome here. Strike 3. The tourism weapon. This one was the nuclear option. In the first 9 months of 2025 alone, China sent 7.5 million travelers to Japan. These tourists spent over $1 billion per month. Hotels, restaurants, shops, tourist spots. Entire Japanese industries depend on Chinese tourism. And now, all of it was on the chopping block. But China still wasn't done. On November 22nd, they took it to the United Nations. China's permanent representative wrote, if Japan dares to attempt an armed intervention in the cross-strait situation, it would be a clear act of aggression. Think about what's at stake here. China and Japan, over $300 billion in bilateral trade every single year. Electronics, cars, semiconductors. 2 of the world's largest economies, now locked in a diplomatic death spiral. Most countries would back down at this point. The economic pressure alone would force them to apologize, retract, and move on. Japan did the opposite. November 23, 2025. Japanese Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi made an announcement that sent shockwaves through Beijing. Japan will be deploying medium-range surface-to-air missiles to Yonaguni Island. Now let me show you why this matters. Yonaguni Island is 110 kilometers from Taiwan. That's 70 miles. For context, that's just about the distance of most people's daily commute to work. This is the Type 03 Chu-Sam system Japan is deploying. These missiles can hit aerial targets up to 30 miles away. They can track up to 100 targets simultaneously. And they're specifically designed to counter aircraft and cruise missiles. Look at this map. See that range circle? Japanese missiles positioned on Yonaguni can now cover a significant portion of the airspace between Taiwan and mainland China. If China launches an air assault on Taiwan, they now have to contend with Japanese air defense systems covering the approach. China's response? They called it extremely dangerous. Said it breeds regional tensions and stokes military confrontation. But here's what makes this moment so significant. Japan hasn't deployed offensive military capability this close to a potential conflict zone since World War II. This isn't just symbolic posturing. This is operational military infrastructure. And when China demanded Japan retract Takaichi's original statement, she refused. Flat out refused. Despite the economic pressure, despite the threats, despite everything. Japan just drew a line in the sand, and they backed it up with missiles. November 24th and 25th, 2025. President Donald Trump picked up the phone twice. First, he called Chinese President Xi Jinping. Then, he called Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi. Back-to-back conversations with both sides of an escalating crisis. Both China and Japan confirmed that Trump initiated the calls. What was said? We don't know. But the timing tells you everything. The United States just inserted itself directly into this standoff. And here's why the entire world is watching. The Taiwan Strait, 50% of the world's container ships pass through this narrow stretch of water every single year. If this escalates into a military conflict, we're not just talking about a regional war. We're talking about global economic collapse, chip shortages, manufacturing shutdowns, supply chain catastrophe. There's also a historical dimension here. 2025 marks the 85th anniversary of the end of World War II and Japan's surrender. China hasn't forgotten, and they're using that historical memory as a weapon. Right now, we're watching the most dangerous moment in East Asia since the Cold War. 3 scenarios are on the table. Scenario 1. Diplomatic resolution. Trump brokers some kind of deal. Tensions cool. Everyone backs down slowly. Scenario 2. Economic Cold War. China and Japan freeze each other out economically. No shooting, but massive economic damage on both sides. Scenario 3. Military confrontation. China escalates with military exercises. Japan responds. Things spiral out of control. And in the middle of all this, 23 million people in Taiwan just trying to live their lives, watching 2 superpowers fight over their future. So where do things stand right now? Japan is not backing down. Those missiles are being deployed to Yonaguni Island as we speak. Defense preparations are accelerating. China is escalating the economic pressure. Military analysts expect large-scale Chinese military exercises near Taiwan in the coming weeks. This is their way of showing force without firing a shot. A female prime minister said 7 words about defending Taiwan. China's diplomat threatened extreme violence. Japan moved missiles 70 miles from the flashpoint. And now the world holds its breath. This is the new Cold War. And it's not happening in Europe or the Middle East. It's happening right here, in the waters between China, Japan, and Taiwan. What do you think? Should Japan defend Taiwan if China attacks? Let me know in the comments below. And hit that subscribe button, because this situation is developing fast, and you don't want to miss what happens next.